Okay, so today is my first talk on this third of our Ongo theme, practicing non-knowing, intimacy with world. Okay. In this practice of non-knowing, we're working with the posture that we take towards ourselves, towards others, and towards the world. It's a way of looking at it or talking about it that I'd like to introduce to you. It's about we're working with the posture that we take towards ourselves. So Zazen, Zen meditation posture, it's quite literally a body posture that we're taking. It's a posture that expresses dignity, openness, non-separation, oneness with all things. It directly manifests these things in that posture. So it's really the primary precious practice of non-knowing intimacy with self is to take this posture of presence, full open-hearted presence to your life and experience. Yeah. So what's the posture we take towards others, and what's the posture we take towards the world? You know, we have our conditioned postures, and now I'm expanding posture to be more than just the physical posture, right? But the mental posture, the relational position that we hold on to, position, sit in or stand in the positions that we take. Right? These conditioned postures, they're ones that tend to reinforce our separateness. Separateness from others, separateness from the world. You know, and of course, at the deepest level, separation from ourselves. Separation from ourselves. So when we talk about non-knowing, we recognize that in this knowing that is problematic, there's a separation between the knower and the known. Me over here having an experience and ideas, and then the external world, which is the object of my perception, of my thinking, my thoughts, my experience. That's the separation. In the same way that the Zazen posture is just being present to your life. You know, our bodies are always present to the world. It's so amazing and wonderful and tragic that we don't realize it. We talk about, you know, being present, and then we're like, oh, well, I'm not present, so I have to work at being present. Well, you know what? Your body is always present. Every single moment. It's never not present. Never not present. It's intimately participating in this exchange of gases that's keeping it alive. You know, feeling all of the elements that are impinging upon it. You know, all the sensory experience that's kind of creating its experience, feelings. And the body has no problems with this. But we bring in the problem, right? It's that conceptual mind that's up in the clouds and isn't in intimate contact with a bodily experience. So really separating the way we separate ourselves from all these things. We have to look at how we're disconnecting ourselves from our own bodies, how we're losing awareness, lacking awareness in our present bodily experience. So we want to look at how we're separating ourselves from the world. What happens? What does that look like? What does it sound like? And how we can rejoin the world, unify with it. Wholly, with our whole body and mind. Because our body's already there. But we need to expand. So our whole mind is included in that present unity with the world. These are urgent questions. We all know what it's like to be alienated and fragmented and partial and incomplete. And we also all know what it's like to be unified and one with. We've had those moments, maybe more than moments, of that reality. And we've experienced the suffering that goes along with separation. And the suffering that we add to that suffering that goes along with separation. On and on. So in the old days, the monastics, who practiced spiritual practices, and in monasteries, the nuns and the monks, they separated themselves from the world in one way. They separated themselves socially so that they could reconnect with the world spiritually. They recognized that there was something in the social interactions as commonly participated in that reinforced the separation. So they had to withdraw from that type of engagement and practice a different type of engagement in order to bring that unification alive. But don't think that it was about separation or withdrawal from the world. That separation from the world on the social level was for the very purpose of studying the ways that they created separation and practicing the ways of engaging that were more conscious, living, and loving. So we have to do the same. Study the ways that we create separation and practice engaging in ways that are intimate and alive. That's what Sangha practice is. So one way we create separation, you all have some access to this, I know, is that we bring our beliefs and our opinions to the front and we use them as filters for our experience. Opinions and beliefs. So right now we have this very polarized society with respect to political affiliation. Right? Obvious. And that's a lens through which we see everything. It's almost impossible not to have the mind go there. Yeah. But it's very limiting when that filter keeps you from seeing the whole picture about someone else or about an aspect of the world, something that's going on. So now I think it's also hard to do this because there is perhaps a sense that we're in a series of ongoing acute crises, like rolling breakdown of institutions and rolling conflicts, right? And in that type of environment, right, like a earthquake or a storm at sea, right? How can you not, be urgently needing to understand, what's going on, who's creating harm, who's making the ship go down, and do what we can do, right? And there's a lot of truth to that, in that type of environment. It is tough to do that. But at the same time, you can even question that. You say, well, are we in a series of ongoing crises of institutions and politics and conflict? Others might say, no, we're not. No, we're not. This one's going slow. This one's going a little faster, but it ebbs and flows. And then someone else might say, oh, things have always been like this. We just live like this. right? There's nothing special about these days, right? Who was it? Ecclesiastes? There's nothing new under the sun, written thousands of years ago. About the thousands of years of of time before that. Right? Would he say the same now? Probably. I think so. There's nothing new under the sun. So that's a perspective, right? So which do you believe? One of them you're like mostly believe, the other one you gets a 1, one of them gets a 6. I believe all of them. Yeah, I think they're all true. Are they contradictory? Yep. So I've said before how Maizumi Roshi used to famously, whenever somebody would present, their theory of the world or the universe to them, I imagine it was something like, aliens visited at this time, or, this is what Zen, this is where Zen came from, some kind of broad vision of things, what's going on. And he would always say, apparently, yeah, could be. Yeah, it could be true. Yeah, and he really entertained it. He really entertained that possibility. Yeah, so how do we do that? How do we hold that possibility moment by moment? Yeah, that's the question, right? I've got a koan to share about intimacy with world. It goes like this. I'm not going to do the whole koan because there's different parts to it and it refers to another koan. So I'm going to leave some out, but I'm going to give you a teaser. Is I'm going to share some of the parts I leave out in my Dharma talk at session over the weekend. Okay, so yeah, all right. You can come online for that too if you're not sitting session. Saturday, 2:30 or something like that. Look at this guy. Okay. But I gotta do the first part to get you interested in the sequel. Okay. Book of Equanimity, case 50. What's this? Seppos. What's this? Attention. When Seppo was dwelling in a hut, 2 monks came and both made prostrations. Seppo, having seen them come, threw open his hut door, burst outside, and shouted, "What's this?" One monk repeated, "What's this?" Seppo hung his head and went back inside the hut. Next part. So the monk who went to Seppo's hut went to Ganto's monastery, who was an old friend of Seppo's, and he told him what happened. And Ganto asked him, was there anything else that he said? And the monk said, no, he just didn't say anything. He hung his head and he went back inside the hut. Well, this encounter happened just before their Ango. So they did a whole Ango, a summer practice period. And then at the end of their 90 days, this monk came back to Ganto and he repeated the story. And he asked, well, so what was going on there with Seppo? And Ganto said, well, why didn't you come sooner? You've been sitting here for 3 months. You told me about this 3 months ago. Why didn't you come sooner? And the monk said, it's not an easy thing to ask. And Ganto remarked, we were born of the same branch, but we will not die of the same branch. If you would know the last word, it is just this. So this koan was the koan that I did for my Shuso Hosen a number of years ago. And as most of you know, our Shuso, this Ango is Lisa Gakyo, who's here. And at the end of our Rohatsu session, we'll have a ceremony in which she will face the community in Dharma encounter, where she'll present her understanding of the koan that she's been working on, and then the community will be able to ask questions of her. That's the ceremony. So this was mine when I did my Shuso Hosen, and I have fond memories of it and fond feeling for it. Seppo, I'm going to say a little bit about these two figures here, Seppo and Ganto. Seppo was a monk who took a long time for him to realize himself in practice. He went to practice with one master and he got kicked out of the monastery because he was so dull and he just didn't get it. And you know, the masters were pretty strict in those days. And he said, go practice with that other guy. And he practiced with the other guy and he got kicked out of there. And he said, go back to the other guy. And he went back to the other guy, back and forth, back and forth. So finally he ended up back with Tokusan, who was also the teacher of Ganto. So they were Dharma brothers, but Ganto, which was much more realized, even though he was quite a bit younger than Seppo, he really realized himself very quickly, and he became, you know, a master in his own right, in his, I think, late 30s. I think it was for Ganto, but there was a period there where Seppo was really struggling and Ganto was clear. So Ganto took Seppo out on a pilgrimage and actually brought him to a number of places and then helped him to realize himself. And he had a big breakthrough on this pilgrimage with Ganto. And Seppo went on to found a monastery with hundreds of monks, and he helped a lot of monks. And there's a lot of teachers in our lineage who actually who are transmitted through Seppo and come down. Whereas Ganto actually was murdered by bandits early in his life before he could even establish his own monastery. So you never know. And also there's this mysterious beauty to Seppo's life as a struggling, struggling practitioner who practiced really seriously for decades before really clarifying the great matter for himself. I believe he was around 50 when he really had his breakthrough. And then I think he didn't start teaching the monastery for a number of years after that. And my understanding is that this koan happens where he's in his hut in between those periods. So he's had his realization, but he's kind of gone off on his own and he hasn't started his own monastery yet. So these two monks come up and he can see him coming, right? It's like, oh, here come these monks. Oh boy, what's up here? You know, what are they bringing? And then they bow down, and he's like, oh, here they go. They're bowing down in front of my little hut. It's like, what ideas do they have? So he bursts out, and he just goes, what's this? What's going on here? And this monk meets him. He goes, what's this? He just parrots it back. And he just, I don't know if he had some ideas about, how to meet a Zen master. You just say back what he says to you, what they say to you, right? That's not what Seppo, it's not what the monks want. What the monks want is their radical authenticity. They really want to be open to the world. And Seppo's saying, yeah, well, don't come to me for that. What's going on with you? What's this? That's practicing non-knowing. What's this? What's this? What's this? What is this? What are we doing here? I'm sitting up here in front of this circle, this pillow, sharing my dharma, my life. You're sitting, listening. It's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for your attention. It's kind of strange, isn't it? What's this? What's going on here? What's going on here? What's going on now? Did something just shift? It's always changing. So it's a pointer to be radically authentic and sincere in each moment. Have the courage to face the world in its rawness and immediacy in every moment. So born of the same branch, but not die of the same branch. There's real deep dharma in here. And just kind of riff on it a little bit. It might not be clear. It's okay. Yeah, so Ganto and Seppo were born of the same branch in that they both practiced with Tokusan. They practiced together for a long time, you know. But then now this is years later, and Seppo's doing and saying his thing, and Ganto is doing and saying his thing. So is that born of the same branch but not dying of the same branch? Is that okay? Yeah, it's got to be okay, right? You have brothers and sisters, right? Born of the same womb, but you don't die of the same womb. So you've got a unity of experience, a connection, you know, say with a brother and sister in that way. But then you have your own life, unique life. They're both true. We share this life as one, radically one, radically one. And we each have our own irreducible, individual personal experience and perspectives. At the same time, they're both fully true. So we're separate and we're unified at the same time. We have personal experience and impersonal experience at the same time. Completely. Both. They don't contradict each other. They don't contravene each other. They don't struggle or in conflict with each other at all. Fully, completely personal. Fully, completely impersonal. Every moment. We have to take a posture with respect to the world, with respect to ourselves, that honors this truth, that manifests this truth, that brings this truth alive. That's our posture of non-knowing. What's this? You have to be open to what's going on here, because you're a part of it. We deny and are not aware of the experience of our body, and we're not aware always of the experience of our world. Because we have these obstacles, clouds, limitations in our awareness. We have to open to these. Let the clouds dissipate. I've shared before that one of the last real direct teachings that my teacher Shishin Roshi gave me was don't take anything personally. He set me on his way. It's a great, powerful teaching. Not always easy to do, but a wonderful teaching. But this was for me a late teaching. I would have taken this differently earlier in my practice. And I've shared this with some who are earlier in your practice, and I want to add something to it now in my talking about it, which I think is important, which is to really fully take this in, don't take anything personally. To be fully understood like that, at the deepest level, it has to be heard by someone who has gone deeply into their own personal experience and experienced themselves personally, deeply, all the way through. So deep that they have found their personal experience to be empty. Not expressing a fixed self. You have to experience your personal experience completely, fully, concentratedly, lovingly, fully. And when you do that, this is what Zazen is. We're experiencing that there is no self that's having those experiences. There's no person there that's having those experiences. So we go into our personal experience to find there's no person there. That's practice. It's beautiful. It's liberating. And when you've done that, then you understand what it means to not take something personally. Oh, yeah, because there's no person there. Okay, so remember that. Okay, but if there's someone who has unhealed wounds, if they haven't gone deeply enough into their own personal experience, and they have not resolved inner conflicts, they haven't healed wounds, they haven't examined their beliefs, their personal beliefs, fully, then you might hear, don't take it personally as, well, that stuff doesn't matter, something like that. Don't pay attention to your personal beliefs and wounds and issues. Okay, no. You have to go in and study your personal beliefs, your personal postures that you're prone to take with respect to the world. So non-knowing the world is to meet the world with humility and openness, realizing that form is constantly arising from emptiness and dissolving. Form and emptiness are one, ultimately. So this being so, what is there to know? What can we really know? It's fixed. Something that's always and everywhere true. I don't know. Do you? Yeah. So what is this? What is this? Seppas. What is this? What's going on? What's going on here? It's an endlessly fruitful question. What's going on here? What's going on here now? Oh, there's a sad note to me at the end of this when the monk, Ganto asks him, why didn't you come? You know, you've been sitting here for 3 months. Why didn't you come and ask me about this? You know, and he says it's not an easy thing to ask. You know, and I sense that Ganto is disappointed. You know, that he didn't come and ask, right? That's the question. Ask, what is this? The monk could have come and asked Ganto, what is this? Instead of kind of parroting back to Seppa, what is this? Well, you said, what is this? So I'm going to say, what is this? Now the monk has his own, what is this? What is this? Can you help me out here? Right? But yeah, you have to be, you know, humble, right? You have to admit that you don't know what's going on, that you don't get it, maybe. Maybe that you're scared. Maybe that you're confused. These are wonderful postures of practice. Confusion, bewilderment, scared, unstable, unknowing, uncertain. That's a posture of practice. It's an emotional posture, you know, and combined with the strength and the dignity and the stability of that zazen posture, which can also be part of the emotional posture, the emotional body. That's it. Now we're appreciating that field. Okay, so that's all I have to say right now about practicing non-knowing intimacy with the world. Okay, so let's take this into our own practice, into our own zazen, into our engagement with the world.